Now we have the final set of games. Now, this stretch of the timeline has been theorised in this order before. I am definitely not the first. However, I would like to give some more evidence supporting it, and also supporting how it fits in with my timeline. So the order of the games are A Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap, A Legend of Zelda Four Swords, A Legend of Zelda Four Swords Adventures, followed by A Legend of Zelda and A Legend of Zelda 2. Now, I know a lot of Zelda timeline theorists are really up on Minish Cap being at the beginning of the Zelda timelines. However, I have it placed here, and I have it placed here for reasons. And here they are. In the beginning of Minish Cap, the legend tells of the hero of men who was given the sword by the Picori from the sky. Now, I'm going to throw it out there that this legend is the story of A Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Not only because the hero came from the sky, the sword came from the sky, but also because the sword looks a lot like the Master Sword. Of course, we already know it was not the Picori who gave the Master Sword to Link. So, given the time difference between the two games, I suggest that the legend itself is merely a tale told to the Hellenians from long ago. And now it's slightly incorrect. It's been hundreds of years since even Twilight Princess at this point, so the tale's been passed down over generations and generations and generations, and it might be a slight mistranslation. Both the hero of men and the sword came from Skyloft, but Skyloft wasn't the home of the Picori, was it? My theory is that yes, in fact, it was. That the now tiny Picori are descendants of the once great and powerful Loftwings. Add in a transitional form, the Ikoku, and we have ourselves a solid theory. So we already know the goddess's statue joined up with Hyrule, but the rest of Skyloft didn't. In fact, it remained in the air with the Loftwings. It's very possible that that floating piece of land later became the city in the sky, inhabitants of the Ikoku, and this is further supported by the fact that there is some Minish that live in a city in the sky. Also thinking of the legends of the Ikoku, that they knew the original royal family and members of Hyrule, and that they were closer to the gods than anybody else, leads me to hypothesize this, that Loftwings, through segregation from the rest of Hyrule, devolve into the Ikoku. They're now a bit smarter, more humanoid-like in their face shapes, and they manage to build the rest of the city in the sky around Skyloft. But they continue to devolve. Sometime after Link visits them in A Twilight Princess, they decide to head down to the surface world and see what it's all about. But by that time they've devolved into the Minish, and they need portals to speak with the humans. The humans can only speak with the Picori for so long at a time before they disappear. Actually, once every 100 years, to be precise. So I find it plausible that the Hellenians may have accidentally given credit to the Loftwings for the Master Sword. And this does make sense when you think about it. The Picori Blade, the Master Sword, the Skyward Sword, it's all one sword from the same place. And the Picori are the Loftwings. With all of this backstory to go into it, I'm going to place a Minish Cap about 800 to 900 years after the events of Twilight Princess. In the game, the Picori Blade, or the Master Sword in this case, is broken, and all of the evil that was sealed away inside of it is now released into the world. Vati tries to obtain the Light Force, or Triforce, but is unfortunately for him, stopped by Link. The next two games in the series are the rest of the Four Swords trilogy, Four Swords and Four Swords Adventures. Over the period of these games, the shadow doppelganger known as Dark Link manages to free Vati. The first time, Vati is sealed away, and the second time he is destroyed. However, in that time, Ganon's beast form manages to regain enough power to come back into the world. At the end of the game, Ganon gets sealed inside the Four Sword, but unfortunately the Four Sword isn't as powerful as it was when it was the Master Sword, and so eventually he escapes and spreads his tyranny across Hyrule. The land becomes desolate, and this leads up to the event of A Legend of Zelda, in which Ganon captures the Princess Zelda, tries to regain the Triforce, and regain his hold over the whole of Hyrule, but Link manages to stop him. After this game, his minions, including Shadow Link, are once again out to try and revive Ganondorf. But Link stops them one last time, and as far as this timeline goes, that's the end. Another speculation that I have to support this timeline theory lies with the Gerudos. As I stated earlier, the Gerudo followers of Ganondorf were killed by him when they tried to enter the Sacred Realm, hence why the Gerudo Desert is empty in the Twilight Princess. But that wasn't all of the Gerudos, as they make a reappearance in the Four Swords Adventures. I suggest that the Gerudo Sage also had followers, and that they left the desert when the others did, as there wouldn't be enough there to survive. I submit that they returned to the desert later on, sometime after Twilight Princess but before Four Swords Adventures. We know the Gerudos are possibly still around in Twilight Princess because of the character Telma, who seems to share some resemblance with the Gerudos. Also in the desert are a species called the Zuna. These are descendants of great pyramid builders. My guess is when the Gerudos returned to the desert, they simply didn't have enough numbers to make a working civilization. So they went to the Arbiter's Ground. There they pleaded with the sages to make a new Mirror of Twilight and release the Twilight Realm captives so that they could live together. The descendants of all the original interlopers and war criminals from the Hylian Civil War now become the Zuna, a race that lives in the desert with the Gerudos. This idea is further supported by the Gerudos from this game not being hostile to outsiders, whereas they were way back before Twilight Princess. Further supporting this theory and supporting the idea that it was a large amount of time between Twilight Princess and Minish Cap is the fact that there aren't pyramids in Twilight Princess and there are in Four Swords Adventures. This means there needs to be time for the Zuna to be freed from the Twilight Realm, build the pyramids, and then become known as the descendants of pyramid builders. So here you have it. I'm calling this the official Missing Link timeline theory. Thank you all for watching and look forward to future videos by me, including a possible review of the Zelda timeline made by Nintendo.